Alex McMillan was over the moon. He pulled his cell phone out of his pocket and called home to inform his wife that his 2-day meeting in San Francisco had been cancelled, and he wouldn't be taking his 5:30 p.m. flight after all. He was heading back to the office to drop off some documents and expected to be home in about 3 hours. In reality, the 2-day meeting was actually a job interview. He had caught wind of a vacancy for the position of division president at a national company that had recently relocated one of its divisions to the Chicago area. Everything he knew about Chappell Electronics suggested that working there would be fantastic, and the regional division's office was close enough to his home that his commute wouldn't take any longer than it did now. Chappell is a manufacturer of electronic devices, including video surveillance equipment and other widely used electronics. The position was a perfect fit for his skill set, and he had been highly recommended to the company by his boss and friend, Michael Kraft. Michael had close personal connections with several high-ranking individuals at Chappell and had helped facilitate the introduction. Although Michael was unhappy to see Alex leave, he understood he couldn't hold him back and gave him a glowing recommendation. In fact, Michael was held in such high regard that the only reason the interview took place at all was to satisfy the formal protocol required by Chappell. The trip was cancelled because they planned to meet him in Chicago at the division headquarters, not at the corporate headquarters in San Francisco. According to Michael, they were going to offer him the position right away. This came as somewhat of a surprise to Alex, but the company had been following his career for several years and, out of respect for his boss, had refrained from making a direct offer earlier. They hadn't made him an official offer yet, but this would be settled when he met with them the following day. Chappell had outlined a high salary and benefits package that made Alex's head spin. Regardless of where his offer landed within that range, he knew it would significantly improve their standard of living. If everything went according to plan, Alex would start the job in 3 weeks. When he arrived at the office, Michael was already waiting for him with a huge smile on his face. He congratulated Alex warmly. "If anyone deserves this, it's you. Congratulations." Apparently, Michael's friends had already called him to share the news that the job was Alex's. Alex replied, "Come on, Michael, they haven't even made me an official offer yet. You'll have to hold off on the congratulations, but thanks anyway." Alex was genuinely moved by the support he received from Michael and told him that Chappell Electronics had informed him the person hired for the position would need to start work in 3 weeks. Alex added that if he were offered the position, he would accept it. Michael responded, "I knew this was going to happen, so, to be honest, I've already chosen your replacement. It's in Colton, and she's fully qualified to take over for you starting tomorrow, as you well know, since you've taught her everything she knows." Alex smiled. And had joined his team 2 years ago, and as Michael said, she was more than capable of replacing him. She had even stepped into the role a couple of times when Alex took extended vacations. He was thrilled with Michael's choice and genuinely happy for Anne. She deserved the promotion and would undoubtedly excel in the role. "Spend this week getting Anne up to speed on all your ongoing projects," Michael continued, "and then take the remaining 2 weeks off. You'll be incredibly busy as soon as you start at Chappell. You'll miss your cozy job here. Also, Alex, their benefits package is enormous. They know what they're getting with you, and they're ready to pay handsomely for it. Ask for everything you could hope for, they'll pay it." When Alex arrived home, he noticed that his wife's car wasn't in the garage. He recalled that she was likely still at work and would be home soon. Entering the kitchen, he dropped his bag on the floor and walked over to the refrigerator to grab a beer. He glanced into the dining room and saw that his wife had set the table with 2 place settings of their finest china and crystal, along with candles, napkins and holders, and other romantic decorations. He smiled to himself, thinking she was planning a special dinner for him when he returned home from his interviews. As he headed to their bedroom, he noticed the answering machine's blinking light. They had 2 messages. The first message was the one he had left earlier. The second message, however, made him freeze in shock when he heard it. "Hey, baby, it's Larry. I just wanted to let you know I'm planning to arrive on schedule around 6:30 p.m. I can't wait to hold you again. Every time I think about the last time we were together, I can't get it out of my head. I'm going to make sure this night is unforgettable. See you soon, baby, be ready for me. Alex couldn't believe what he had just heard. He recognized that voice. Larry. The message was from Larry Evandale, one of his wife Jody's ex-boyfriends. Larry had dated Jody in high school, but Alex had won her over and married her. Now, Larry was some big-shot lawyer in Texas and, as far as Alex knew, still unmarried. Until this moment, Alex had never had a reason to doubt Jody's love or loyalty. Under his breath, he muttered, "That deceitful woman. How could she do this to me?" Then Alex remembered the dining table, set for a romantic dinner, and the anger he had felt turned into pure rage. When Jody's mother passed away, each of her 4 daughters took 2 sets of china, crystal, silverware, and napkins with ornate silver napkin rings as keepsakes. Jody cherished these items and only used them on special occasions. He thought to himself, well, from this moment on, we'll see just how special this occasion really is. He went to his workshop and grabbed a sledgehammer. Returning to the dining room, he began smashing all the china and crystal. He also struck the dining table and the napkin holders, bending and damaging them to the point where they were likely beyond repair. He tore the napkins in half and placed them on top of the shattered glassware. Then he removed his wedding ring, flattened it with the hammer, and laid it on one of the torn napkins. Alex pulled out his cell phone and dialed his home number. "Jody, it's Alex. Based on the message I just heard a few minutes ago, I assume you had a very special dinner planned tonight with Larry. But, as you might have noticed, I kind of ruined it for you both. Then again, what is that compared to how you destroyed our marriage? See you around. Goodbye." After doing this, Alex picked up his bag from the kitchen floor and headed to his car. He drove straight to O'Hare Airport and called to check the arrivals of flights from DFW in Texas. There were only a few flights, United 5412 and Delta 1253, that could have brought Larry to the city in time to reach Alex's house by 6:30 p.m. Alex called United Airlines and asked to speak with a customer service representative. He inquired, "Is Larry Evandale on flight United 5412 arriving from DFW?" Regardless of how the customer service representative answered, Alex believed he could deduce which flight Larry was on. If they said, "No, sir, there is no Larry Evandale on this flight," he would know Larry was on Delta Flight 1253. If they said, "Sir, I can't disclose that information to you," he would assume Larry was on the United flight. As it turned out, Larry was on the Delta flight, and Alex waited near the gate as passengers disembarked. When Larry walked out, Alex approached him from behind and quickly spoke in a venomous tone, "Larry, don't even think about going to my house tonight. If you do, I'll find you, and I'll kill you. Your smartest move would be to just get back on a plane to Texas. Yes, that would be the wisest choice you could make." When Alex approached him, Larry was stunned and at a loss for words. He couldn't fathom how Alex had figured out he would be arriving at that time and couldn't think of anything to say. However, when Alex walked away, Larry finally regained his composure and shouted, "But Alex, it's not what you think." It was already too late, though, as Alex had disappeared into the crowd and didn't hear a word. Larry had also known Alex from high school and college and was well aware that Alex could be a tough bastard when he wanted to be. "Damn," Larry muttered to himself. "If I stick around here, I might get shot. She's not worth it." He quickly made up his mind, pulled out his cell phone, and called to cancel the business meeting he had scheduled for the next day. Then he walked over to the nearest service counter and booked the next flight back to Dallas. His flight was leaving in 2 hours, so Larry headed to the bar and treated himself to a much-needed drink, or 3 or 4. By the time he boarded his flight back to Dallas, he was feeling pretty tipsy but relieved to be alive. He figured he'd find some other, less risky woman back in Dallas. Around 5:30 p.m., Patricia Hunt Davenport, Trish, unlocked the door and entered the house, heading straight to the kitchen. She saw the blinking light on the answering machine and, fully expecting a message from Larry, pressed the play button. Instead of a message from Larry, it was the one Alex had left on the machine shortly before leaving. "Jody, it's Alex. Based on the message I just heard a couple of minutes ago, I assume you had a very special dinner planned tonight with Larry, but as you might have noticed, I kind of ruined it for you too. But what is that compared to how you've destroyed our marriage? See you around. Goodbye." Trish was stunned. How had Alex gotten Larry's message? He was supposed to be on a flight to San Francisco. She thought, oh my God, Alex thinks it's Jody who's meeting Larry. Oh no. This is terrible. Then she noticed the destruction in the dining room, and her panic intensified. Trish called her own home, and her sister, Jody Hunt McMillan, answered. Oh my God, Jody, we have a huge problem. Alex came home and got the message from Larry. He smashed the china and crystal, wrecking the entire dining room and the festive table you set up for me. Get the kids in the car and come here. Oh God, Jody, I'm so sorry this happened. As it turned out, Trish Davenport was the married woman who wanted to experience a bit of romance and an extramarital fling with Larry Evandale. Her husband, Carl Davenport, was out of town on business, and Jody had planned to watch her children while Trish hosted her little rendezvous with Larry. Trish knew that Carl tended to work long hours when he was away and likely wouldn't call her until 8 p.m. or later, giving her several hours to spend with Larry. But now that Alex had figured out what was going on, the entire plan had fallen apart. Jody arrived with her 6-month-old twins in their car seats about 10 minutes after hanging up. They lived only a few blocks apart, so all she had to do was gather the children and drive over. As soon as Jody walked through the door, Trish noticed the panic on her face. Jody rushed over to her and exclaimed, "Oh my God, Trish, what am I going to do? How did this happen? Now Alex thinks I'm having an affair." "This is all my fault, Jody," Trish admitted. "I've been so overwhelmed since the twins were born, and I just wanted to feel alive and desirable again. When Carl told me he had to leave town, I think something inside me just snapped, and I lost touch with reality. I called Larry to see if he could come over, and, well, you know the rest. Oh God, Jody, I can't believe this is happening." The two young women listened to all 3 messages on the answering machine, the first from Alex, the second from Larry, which left no doubt about his intentions, and the final one from Alex again. When they played Larry's message, they fully understood why Alex had destroyed everything and left the message he did. While no names were mentioned, Larry's message left no doubt about his intentions to engage in an intimate encounter with the woman he was calling. The first thing they needed to do was reach Alex and convince him that Jody hadn't been having an affair. The two women were confident they could sort things out with Alex and beg him to give Trish a chance to repair the damage she had done to her own marriage. Alex had checked into the Hyatt Hotel in Oak Brook. He needed time to process everything and knew he couldn't go back home. The Hyatt had a nice restaurant and lounge, so even though he wasn't particularly hungry, he had a light dinner and then went to the lounge for a drink. After his second drink, he decided it would be wiser to take a bottle up to his room. He asked the bartender if he could order a bottle of scotch to be sent to his room and was assured it could be arranged. Settling into his room, Alex sat on the sofa with a glass of whiskey in hand. He knew he had missed a few calls that had gone to his voicemail, so he pulled out his cell phone and saw that he had 3 messages. The first one was from Trish, his sister-in-law and Jody's sister, Alex. "I just got to your house, saw the mess in the dining room, and listened to the messages on your answering machine. Oh my God, Alex, you've made a mistake, and I just don't know what to do. I was the one who was supposed to meet Larry at your house, not Jody. She was at my house taking care of the twins. Oh God, Alex, this is a mistake. Please call me or call Jody, and we'll explain everything. Jody wasn't cheating on you, it was me. Please call me back." The second message was from Jody, saying more or less the same thing. "Alex, darling, there's been a terrible misunderstanding, baby. I'm so sorry you thought I was cheating on you. That must have been awful for you. But, sweetheart, it was all arranged at our house, and Trish was the one meeting Larry while I was babysitting the twins. Please call me or come home so we can talk. You'll see how much I love you and how horrible I feel about the pain this has caused you. The third message was also from Jody, Alex McMillan. This was a terrible mistake and misunderstanding. Come home so we can fix this before you do something rash. You know I love you. Alex pulled out his cell phone, selected his wife's number from his contact list, and sent her a text message. I got the messages from you and your sister and I understand what you're saying. But I still need a couple of days to think this over. I'll call you tomorrow night. He was still upset but actually felt a little better about the situation. What he couldn't understand was why they had arranged this at his house. The twins were only 6 months old. Even though he understood what they were trying to explain in their messages, he planned to verify a few things for himself. A few seconds later, his phone buzzed, alerting him to a text message. It was from Jody. Alex, I want you to come home. Please don't stay away from me, baby. I need you here, please. Alex immediately replied, No, Jody. I need to sort this out. I'll call you tomorrow night. He turned off his phone and had a couple more drinks before finally collapsing onto the bed and falling asleep. The next thing he knew, sunlight was streaming through the windows, hitting him directly in the face. Reluctantly, he got up and drew the curtains to block out the light. It was killing him, and he was already feeling miserable enough. Alex glanced at the clock on the nightstand and saw that it was 8:30 a.m. He wasn't in a great mood, but he couldn't help smirking at the thought of how awful it would have been if his interview had been scheduled for the morning instead of 2 p.m. He knew he still had a packed schedule, so he called home to check if Jody had left for work. She didn't answer his call, so he assumed she had already gone. Alex left his hotel room and took the elevator down to the garage. He got into his car and drove to an electronics store, where he purchased a few items before heading home. As he drove, he thought, well, while I'm at it, I might as well test out some products from Chapel Electronics. When he arrived home, he felt relieved that no one was there. He quickly gathered some clothes and personal items for the next couple of days and placed them in his car. He spent time installing bugs in the phones in the kitchen and bedroom, as well as cameras in each room. He set up the transmitter in the basement workshop. Jody would never notice it there, and he would be able to access all the data from his laptop or cell phone. Once everything was in place and he was confident it would all work perfectly, Alex took a shower and got dressed for his interview. He managed to arrive at Chapel Electronics about 10 minutes early and waited for the interview to begin. As he expected, the interview went very well, and he was offered the position. The salary and benefits package they presented was incredible. They essentially gave him the freedom to name his own salary. Who does that? Alex realized they truly wanted him on board. He said, I accept the position, pending a final agreement on the benefits package between us. The benefits are excellent, and I don't see a need for any changes there, but the salary needs some adjustment. Joe Sanford, his new boss, looked surprised and responded, Alex, the salary we're offering is nearly double what you're currently earning. What else needs adjusting? Alex chuckled softly, and Joe's face started to redden slightly as he grew frustrated. Alex reassured him, saying, Joe, I'll take less. Give me a $50,000 increase over my previous salary, and let's develop a performance-based incentive program that will allow me to earn more than what you're offering if I do my job well. In addition to the incentive program, I'd like a specific bonus if all the goals are met. What do you think? Does that sound reasonable? Joe smiled and said, Michael was right, you're exactly the person we need for this position. You've got a deal, Alex. Together, we'll evaluate where we are now and where we want to be, and I'm confident the board will approve the incentive and bonus programs. We'll finalize the numbers later, if that's all right with you. After the interview and subsequent meetings, Alex and Joe went to dinner at Morton's Steakhouse. Later, Alex returned to his hotel to reflect further on his home situation. Feeling exhausted, he decided to wait until morning to review the surveillance footage he had set up before the interview. When the morning sunlight hit his face, Alex got up and prepared for the new day. He arranged to have breakfast delivered to his room and began reviewing the surveillance footage recorded over the past 24 hours. He listened to a couple of phone calls unrelated to the situation and then came across a call from Jody to Larry Evandale. "Larry, I know everything went sideways, and I'm sorry about that. Alex was supposed to be on a flight to San Francisco, but unfortunately, that trip got cancelled." Larry responded, "But the only flight he was on was right in front of me when I got off the plane. I know Alex confronted you, but what else did you expect him to do in this situation? Well, babe, no piece of ass is worth getting killed over, but I was really looking forward to having both of you. Larry, we'll have to forget about all of this for now. I know we were planning to spend the night together after Trish went home, but I need to convince Alex that you were only meeting with Trish, not with me too. All right, but I'll call you next time I plan to come to Chicago and see if we can meet then. Just be careful not to let Alex find out next time. Yes, call me next time. And Larry, I was disappointed too. I was really looking forward to being with you again, and we'll just see what we can arrange in the future." Hearing this conversation made Alex's blood boil, that lying cheat. "She's been unfaithful to me and will do it again. I knew there was something suspicious about that meeting in our house with Trish and Larry," he said aloud. He took a moment, poured himself a glass of whiskey, and sat down. The next call he listened to was from Jody to Trish. "Trish, get the kids in the car and come over. We need to sit down and figure out how to deal with this so none of us gets hurt. Come now, and please hurry." There were a few unrelated calls after that, and then, early in the morning, Jody called her work to request the day off. Alex switched to the live feed from the cameras and audio in the house. He saw Jody cleaning up the mess he had made in the dining room. It was obvious she was upset over the destruction of her mother's heirlooms. There was no way to repair the china or crystal. He had shattered everything into tiny pieces, none larger than an inch. The silver was bent beyond repair, and the napkins were torn in half. There was nothing that could be done about it. He watched as Jody sobbed while throwing the broken pieces into the trash bin. He saw her pick up his flattened wedding ring, and her cries grew louder. She didn't throw it away. Instead, she held it in her hands as if it were a precious relic. Then she gently pressed it to her heart before slowly placing it in her pocket. He heard her moan, "Oh, what have I done? I have to convince him it was just Trish. I couldn't live without him. What was I thinking, telling Larry I'd see him another time?" After finishing the cleanup in the dining room, Jody went to the living room, sat in his chair, and began to cry. He watched her for a while until Trish arrived. Jody said, "Trish, we have to convince Alex that it was only you who had an affair with Larry. If he thinks it was me, my marriage is over. He'll divorce me in a heartbeat if he believes I was involved. And then you'll be in trouble too because Carl will get suspicious if Alex and I get divorced." "You're right, Jody," Trish replied. "But how do I save my marriage? If Carl gets suspicious, he might order a DNA test for the twins, and then I'm completely screwed. He'll find out the twins aren't his, and my marriage will fall apart. What are we going to do?" "As I said," Jody replied, "we have to convince him it was you, and then beg him not to tell Carl. We need to appeal to his softer side so he won't destroy your marriage. Beg him and promise that you'll never make this mistake again." "Oh, damn it, Jody, I'll never make this mistake again. This whole thing terrifies me, and I really do love Carl. Whatever it takes, we'll do it. Convince Alex and beg him not to tell Carl." They both sat silently for a while, deep in thought, as Alex continued watching them. Finally, Jody spoke again. "Damn it, why did we all have to turn out like Mom? She cheated on Dad, and now you and I have cheated on our husbands, and Kay and Bobby have been cheating on theirs for years. I think the next time we all get together, we need to make a pact to never cheat again, although Mom never stopped until the day she died. Trish asked, how many times have you cheated on Alex? I've only cheated on Carl twice, both times with Larry. This would have been the third. The second time I cheated, I got pregnant with the twins, and that was my last time. I'll never cheat on Carl again. Alex was particularly interested in Jody's response. Well, I guess I've cheated a few times too. Twice with Larry and a few times with guys who hit on me at bars. When Alex was traveling, I hated sitting at home alone, so I'd go out and let some guys buy me drinks and flirt a little. I guess a few times I went too far, and the next thing I remember, I was lying on my back with my legs spread. I can't say I regret it, but back then, there weren't any real intentions. I just didn't want to be alone. Trish laughed, no intentions. Jody, that's priceless. You go to a bar, flirt, let guys buy you drinks, and then claim you never intended to let them sleep with you. You've really made me laugh. Jody smiled. Okay, you're right. But it wasn't as good with them as it was with Larry. Those times just happened in the heat of the moment, but with Larry, we planned it in advance. Alex listened and observed their conversation until Trish took the twins and went home. Their discussion revolved around the same topic, how they would convince him that Trish was guilty, not Jody, and how they planned to plead with him to give Trish another chance. Finally, Trish left, and Jody went to bed. Alex watched as Jody prepared for bed, and as she lay down, he once again heard her speak through her sobs, I have to fix this. I just can't lose him. Alex shut everything off. There were more recorded phone calls and more videos to review, but his heart couldn't take it anymore. He had heard and seen everything he needed. His anger was at such a level that he wondered if he might explode. His only thoughts at that moment were how he would strangle that woman if she were in front of him right now. This was completely out of character for Alex. He grabbed a bottle of scotch, took a large swig, and then poured the rest down the drain. He lay on the bed, lost in thought, and soon drifted into a deep sleep. He didn't know how long he had been asleep, but he woke up when he heard someone opening the door to his room. The maid gasped as she realized he was still in the room. She said, I'm so sorry, sir, I didn't know you were here, and there was no safety latch on the door. I'll come back to clean your room later. Could you let me know when it would be a good time to return? She asked. What time is it? Alex asked. It's 11 a.m., she replied. All right, miss, I'll be out of here in an hour. The pressure in his head eased, and the pounding in his chest had almost completely subsided. Alex decided he could handle the situation now, so he picked up his phone and called Jody's office. He wanted to leave a trail that wouldn't reveal the fact that he already knew the truth. Unsurprisingly, he was told that Jody wasn't in, so he said he'd call her on her cell phone. When she answered, he asked, Jody, where are you? I tried calling your office, but they told me you didn't show up today. You're sleeping with some guy behind my back. Jody's anger flared, but she knew it was better to remain calm. She replied, Alex, I'm not sleeping with some guy, as you so eloquently put it. Trish and I both told you that she, not me, was the one planning to meet Larry. I'm at home. I was too upset to go to work, so I took the day off. Please, come home, Alex, so we can clear this all up. I'm coming home right now. Call Trish and tell her to come over. Get that cheating ass of hers closer to your own cheating ass, he thought to himself. When Alex walked through the door, they both rushed toward him, speaking at the same time. Jody tried to hug and kiss him, but he pushed her away. He let them talk for a while, all the while thinking about what he was going to do and say. Finally, he raised his hand to stop them from speaking that he wasn't going to reveal exactly what he knew or how he had found out, but he was going to make it clear that he knew more than they thought. Alex said, I want you both to stop this nonsense. Just so you know, I'm not buying any of this. First of all, Trish, I believe you're having an affair with Larry. You were the first one at the scene, and I believe Jody covered for you while taking care of your kids. But I also believe that after you left, my loving wife was planning to sleep with Larry too. Why do I believe this? Because when I confronted Larry, he didn't tell me I was wrong. He didn't tell me it was Trish, not Jody. Larry expected to sleep with both of you, didn't he? By the look on their faces, he could see he was right, and, of course, he already knew all of this. He continued, Jody, when your mother died, your father came to me and told me everything she had done and warned me about you. He said you and your sisters are just as promiscuous as your mother and cautioned me to keep a close eye on you. At the time, I didn't think much of it, but it turns out he was right. I wish he were here so I could tell him how right he was, but unfortunately, he's gone. Maybe it's for the best that he doesn't have to see the mess you've made of your life. As he mentioned their mother and father, both women grew increasingly upset. Tears streamed down their cheeks, and they were breathing deeply and frequently. Alex knew he had them cornered now. All right, Jody, this is your one chance. But just one. One mistake, one lie, and it's over. Understood? Yes, Alex, I understand. The whole truth and nothing but the truth, he said. How many times have you slept with Larry Evandale? Alex, please don't make me answer that question. I love you, and I really want to save our marriage. I want you to keep loving me, please, Alex. I'll tell you if you insist, but please don't make me, please. Talk. She lowered her head and said, twice. He asked, how many other men have you slept with since we got married? She raised her head, her eyes wide with fear. Oh God, Alex, please don't make me answer that. You'll hate me. Please. She saw the anger on his face as he spat out, tell me, or I'm leaving. She whispered, a few, I don't know exactly. What? He shouted. I can't hear you. I said a few, and I don't know exactly how many. Please, Alex, don't leave me, please. I've been completely honest here and now, please, she pleaded. You're both a pair of cheaters, Alex said, now fully composed. So, here's what's going to happen. Jody, you ignored our wedding vows and destroyed our marriage. Starting right now, I'm going to sleep with whoever I want, wherever I want, and as often as I want. Trish, you're unfaithful to your husband. Well, from now on, you're mine. I never really liked Carl anyway, so I don't mind making a fool out of him. If you don't like this idea, I suppose I'll just have to let him know what you've been up to. She screamed, I will never be your Alex. That's not going to happen. Oh, is that so? By the way, after seeing Larry, I couldn't help but notice how much your twins look like him. You know those little flat spots on their ears? So maybe I'll just drop a hint to Carl and suggest he check into things. I'm sure the DNA results won't be to your liking. So, is no still your answer? From Trish's expression, Alex could tell she was in his hands. Now get your ass to my bed and strip down to just your panties. I'll be there in a minute. Get yourself together right now, or this won't go well for you. She looked absolutely terrified, her eyes wide and her chin trembling, but she nodded obediently. With a pleading glance at Jody, she left the room and headed toward the bedroom. Jody was stunned at how things were unfolding and said, Alex, how can you do this to us? How can you do this to Trish? I know I was wrong, but it's going to be hard for us to get through this. Jody, I don't give a damn right now whether we get through this or not. If you don't like it, just leave. I don't care. You and Trish got yourselves into this mess, so I don't care how you're going to squirm your way out of it. How long are you going to keep this up, Alex? When can we start trying to save our marriage? You want the truth? I don't know how long I'll keep sleeping with other women. I think I'll probably keep doing it until I stop wanting to strangle you every time I see you. Maybe I'll never stop. Since you threw out our wedding vows, I see no reason to honor them either. I'll tell you this, if you ever sleep with another man again, our marriage will end at that very moment. No delay, no second chances. You've already had all the extramarital sex you're going to get while being married to me, and it's over. Do you understand? Jody nodded and whispered yes. Alex acknowledged her agreement with a nod and said, and now, if you'll excuse me, I have a woman to take care of. You might know her, by the way. In the bedroom, Trish stood near the bed, and Alex sat on the edge, gesturing for her to come closer. He gently reached out, his touch soft and thoughtful. You know, Trish, I've often wondered how stunning you might be, and now I can say, you're even more beautiful than I imagined, Alex said, his tone sincere. Trish looked at him with a mix of surprise and warmth. Are you saying you've thought about me like this before, Alex? She asked, her voice quiet yet curious. Yes, of course. You're a beautiful woman, Trish, and honestly, I've imagined more than just how your breasts might look. I've also thought about what it would be like to make love to you. But, being married to Jody, I never acted on those feelings. Still, believe me, they've been there. Now, there's no reason why I shouldn't tell you all the things I've imagined doing with you. And there's no reason why we can't just enjoy being close to each other. Believe me, I plan to continue spending time with you when the opportunity arises. Alex gently pulled Trish closer to him, placing a soft kiss on her shoulder. It was a tender moment, and it seemed clear that Trish appreciated the attention she was receiving. She let out a quiet sigh, showing her enjoyment, which encouraged Alex to continue. He shifted his focus, ensuring both her needs and the moment's intimacy were equally met, and her contentment became evident. As he held her close, he lightly brushed her cheek with his hand, allowing the moment to deepen. He stepped back and said, "Let's make sure this moment stays between us." Looking into her eyes with a steady gaze, he continued, "Trish, from now on, there's something I want you to know. When you come here, let's leave the past and our usual concerns outside. Let's make the most of our time together." Trish's eyes reflected a mix of uncertainty and understanding, and Alex could feel the tension between them shift to something more grounded. He continued, his voice calm yet firm, "We need to keep this arrangement simple and respectful. Let's make sure nothing disrupts the lives we've already built." Trish looked at him with a mix of intensity and vulnerability in her eyes, and Alex felt the tension rising from the weight of his words. He continued, "I'll make sure nothing ever jeopardizes your situation, but I want us to be completely honest when we're together. I want you to be open and willing to share these moments with me, wherever the opportunity arises. Do you understand?" Trish gave him a small smile and replied, "Alex, you have this effect on me. Yes, I understand, and I'll do as you ask." Alex gently placed his hand on her inner thigh, his touch deliberate but unhurried. As she leaned into the moment, he guided her toward the bed, helping her settle comfortably. He stepped back, removed his shirt, and tossed it onto a nearby chair. Then he turned to Trish and said, "Now, this is your choice. You can stop this here and now, get dressed, and leave. We'll never revisit this again. Or, you can decide to continue and show me how you truly feel about this connection." Trish paused, her gaze fixed on Alex. As she contemplated the gravity of the moment, Trish sat up and reached for his belt buckle. After they had spent time together and both were satisfied, Alex said to Trish, "I want you to come here every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Hire a babysitter and plan to spend the latter half of the day with me. If you need money for the babysitter, I'll give it to you, but I need you here the whole afternoon. Also, remember, I insist you follow my request about never wearing underwear in my presence. I can do that, Alex, and I don't need help with babysitter money. I'm fine with our little moments whenever you want." With that, Trish got dressed and left the bedroom. She walked down the hallway to the kitchen, where Jody was sitting at the table with a pained expression on her face, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Jody," Trish said, "but honestly, I'm not going to give this up. I'm his to take whenever he wants. You were a fool to risk your marriage, this incredible man, and everything he has to offer for any of the affairs you've had. Larry doesn't hold a candle to Alex, and I doubt the others do either. I love Carl and don't want to leave him, but sometimes he's a bit of a jerk and not great in bed. But Alex? Alex is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and you ruined it. If I were you, I'd do everything in my power to hold on to him. When Trish left the house, Jody just sat there crying until Alex entered the room. Then she stood up, ran to the bedroom, and slammed the door. Alex didn't see her for the rest of the day and ended up sleeping in their guest bedroom. Over the next month, Alex met with Trish every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. On Monday and Wednesday evenings, he scheduled dates with various women he knew, either from his previous job or from social contacts he had made. And Colton had always shown interest in him, but, of course, he had never allowed himself to pay her any attention. Now that the barriers were gone, Alex and got to know each other on an entirely different level. Occasionally, he even met a stranger at a bar and spent time with her in a hotel room. On those nights, Alex would come home exhausted and carrying the lingering scent of his encounters. Day by day, he could see the toll it was taking on Jody. It was agonizingly difficult for her. He noticed how much she was hurting, but in truth, he didn't care. He spent weekends with Jody, and they actually talked and did things together. However, not once during that month did he share any intimacy with his wife. She asked a couple of times, but he simply shook his head. He wasn't ready yet. A little over a month had passed since he discovered his wife's infidelity, and he decided it was time to push things further. That Friday evening, he stopped at a local bar before heading home. He knew a woman named Carolyn who frequented the place and invited her over. She was driving her own car and followed him to his house. When Alex walked through the door, the house was empty. He took Carolyn to the guest bedroom, where they spent time together, not caring whether Jody might see or hear. At one point, as he glanced toward the door, he noticed Jody standing there, watching them. Her face showed both pain and anger. Alex simply gave her a nod, smiled, and carried on with what he was doing. When he and Carolyn finished, they both got dressed, and Alex walked her to her car. Carolyn said, "I take it you and your wife have an open marriage, Alex," but I noticed she didn't seem very happy about it. "Actually, we don't have an open marriage, Carolyn, but I don't want to explain everything to you right now. Someday, I will, don't worry. I really enjoyed being with you." He kissed her gently and said goodbye. When he returned to the house, Jody charged at him, pounding on his chest and yelling, "I hate you." Alex responded coldly, "Good. Now you finally know how I feel. Now you know what I felt when I discovered how carelessly you treated our wedding vows. Now you understand what it's like when someone you love does to you what you did to me. I promise you this, Jody, I will never bring another woman into this house again. I will also never sleep with Trish here again. That is my solemn promise to you." Jody softened, and her anger seemed to subside. In fact, there was a hint of a smile on her face as she asked, "Will you start making love to me again, Alex?" Alex walked over to the kitchen table and pulled out a folder. "No," he said, "I don't plan on ever sleeping with you again. Here are the divorce papers my lawyer prepared the day after I found out you're a cheating liar. I'm leaving now and will be back on Monday to collect all my things. Have your lawyer contact mine. Oh, and by the way, I'll keep seeing Trish because she's amazing. Though not much better than Kay and Bobby, who I'll also continue to see. Looks like you were the least exciting one in your family. Goodbye, Jody. And now tell me, was it worth it?" He dropped the papers on the table and walked out the door. Jody, in complete shock, collapsed into a chair and burst into tears.